You know, this is getting absolutely sly in China. Last day, everybody's kind of, packing up the hot pots and getting ready to go back to work, those who didn't take the rest of the week off. And the PBoC goes, hey, hikes interest rates. Now we're getting notice that the central bank lifted its bank reserve requirements at the same time. And they didn't tell us. The Shanghai Securities News say that Beijing has imposed punitive reserve requirements on some of the small and mid-sized banks. Johanna Chua, Chief Economist, Asia-Pac Citi, joins us on the show today. Hi, Johanna.
Hi, good morning.
What is it with this central bank? Well, I guess it would be too far a stretch of the imagination to assume that the PBoC was going to be 100% clear and transparent. But, I mean, letting things kind of leak out in papers days after the fact, it's getting a little bit freaky, isn't it?
Well, I think clearly at the moment PBoC is clearly still very worried about inflation, and therefore there needs to be further efforts to rein in liquidity and tighten, and try to temper inflation expectations. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. It's not, they're doing reserve requirement, liquidity tightening, and of course the deposit rate also needs to be adjusted. And I still think there's a lot more adjustment that needs to happen, given that I think the inflation risks are still on the upside.
Well, this actually now you've piqued my curiosity here. Instead of announcing rate increases and reserve requirement hikes, why don't they just do it? Like lift it by 75 basis points, deposit rates and base lending rates, and not tell anybody, and then see what the net effect on the economy is. Then that'd be kind of neat, wouldn't it? Then we could do some real investigative reporting.
That would be definitely innovative central bank monetary policy making. I think there's a concern to do anything too dramatic. I mean, obviously there's still a concern about access to credit, the debt burden, and the fact that there's still ongoing projects, from the stimulus that still need to get funding. So, they're doing it sort of on a more gradual basis in terms of the rate hikes. But having said that, I mean, next week inflation data is coming out, and we expect inflation will be quite high at about 5.5%, and deposit rate is still 1-year deposit rate still at 3%. So you still have negative real rates, and therefore I think there's going to be further adjustments.
Karen, don't you think it would be a good idea if central banks didn't tell us anything, and we could do that sleuth work with the magnifying glass and stuff like that? That would be quite an adventure, wouldn't it?
We'll just live in the dark. Okay, why not? Johanna, what's really become apparent from this story as it's unfolding is the fact that the PBoC has more tools at its side to use than what some of the other central banks do, the reserve requirement being one, artificial moves on the currency being another, but also asymmetrical moves on deposit rates. The 3 and the 5 year you've been telling us have had a higher basis point move than the demand deposits. And this is kind of interesting because doesn't this also target some of the hot money coming into the country? Locking up funds for longer and an incentive to lock up funds for longer targets one of the other big issues the central bank has been facing in China.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the big key objectives is trying to move money out of the demand deposits to longer-term deposits, and therefore it's kind of a smart move to kind of make the adjustment of the rate asymmetric. And I think this has also happened already in the past. So I think there's going to be more of this going forward. And therefore, the fact that they are raising interest rates a little bit more on the long end, hopefully that will deter the speculative capital flow coming in, given the higher interest rates that are happening in China.
Now that they've messed with the triple R and the nominal rates, is the yuan, is maybe a little bit of jockeying around with the yuan, maybe to appease some of the the barking dogs on Capitol Hill. Would that be the next move? Is that the next thing we're going to be talking about?
Well, this week, I mean, U.S. trade deficit numbers are actually coming out, I think today, in the U.S. later today. So obviously, I think renminbi is another tool they could use to tighten monetary conditions, not just interest rates, not just reserve requirements. And we do expect that renminbi will also move a little bit faster in the first half this year. Hopefully around 3%, over 3% appreciation by June. So we'll see. I mean, I think we are all keenly awaiting for that. But clearly, this environment at the moment hasn't been very friendly for Asian currencies at the moment.
Yeah, indeed, we are on the edge of our seats. Johanna Chua from Citi, thank you very much. Bernie, you've got that laptop there still open. I see you can pack it up for us. You and I are about to depart for the call and hand back over to Mark.